All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fernand, and in this video, we're going to talk about one of the best fights that can be made in boxing involving non-champions, prospects on their way up, or at this point, contenders, and that is Jaron "Boots" Ennis out of the great city of Philadelphia and Virgil Ortiz out of Dallas, Texas. And some things that have been said by Oscar De La Hoya and Virgil Ortiz, and a response that I heard from, or a answer to a question that I heard from Jaron Ennis to let you know where he rests with things. Let's do that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fernand. In this video, we're going to talk about the welterweight division, two young fighters and guys that I certainly hope match up with each other in the ring, and I hope they match up with each other in the ring sooner, more soon than later. And that is Jaron Ennis and Virgil Ortiz, both two exceptional young fighters. I think they both would agree that they're both the best up-and-coming fighters in the welterweight division. So we're going to talk about what Oscar De La Hoya had to say about the fight, acting as if he wants it, Virgil Ortiz, and then something that Jaron Ennis said. Man, I'm telling you, man, I like this kid Jaron Ennis a lot. But before I get into that, let me first say welcome back to the channel, subscribers. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon so you can be notified of when we release more videos. And also make sure you hit all notifications so that you can get all of the notifications that we get and not just get them occasionally. All right, so I'm gonna do a little bit of something before I get into the meat of the video about boxing. And that is to dismiss the notion that young up-and-coming fighters cannot fight one another and still go on to have legendary, great careers down the road. And that is what I am hoping we get to see take place between Jaron Ennis and Virgil Ortiz. And more importantly, if boxing was operating the way it should be operating and wasn't watered down with so many different sanctioning bodies and so many different belts, it's a fight that would definitely take place between the two of them. But even in this multi-belt era, you have examples of where fights like this have taken place. And the best example that I can think of in both fighting style and the expectations or potentials of the fighters involved is Roy Jones Jr. versus Bernard Hopkins at middleweight. That was a fight that took place early in both of those guys' careers, and despite the notion or the way that people think about boxing now, which is to avoid risk at all costs for as long as you can until you get one of these 9 million belts that are out there, those guys fought each other. Roy Jones Jr. won the fight, beat Bernard Hopkins, but Bernard Hopkins went on to be a Hall of Fame level middleweight, win titles at middleweight, win titles at 175 pounds. I think he might have picked up one at 168 pounds. Had, great fights with Tito Trinidad, Tito Trinidad, Oscar De La Hoya, Winky Wright, and the likes, and Jermaine Taylor. Pretty much, definitely solidified himself as one of the greatest fighters in the last 40 years, in my opinion. Roy Jones Jr. did the same thing after he moved up and went all the way up to heavyweight, right? So before you guys get into the comment section and tell me how impossible this is and how this fight is ridiculous, it'll never happen, you may be right in the never happened, but you wouldn't be right thinking that if it did happen, that somehow one of these guys are going to get tossed out into the trash can and never make it anywhere in their career. Now, as far as what the parties have said, my understanding and listening to Oscar De La Hoya on some interviews that he gave with Fight Hype, he was asked about Virgil Ortiz and what he was going to do with Virgil Ortiz, and is Virgil Ortiz ready? And was specifically asked about Jaron Ennis, and he said, he thinks very highly of Jaron Ennis as a fighter and believes that, Virgil Ortiz will fight Jaron Ennis. Virgil Ortiz said that he believes he can beat Jaron Ennis right now. And if he got into the ring, he believes that he would stop Jaron Ennis right now. So I went and I looked for what Jaron Ennis's take on the matter was. And the only way I can say it is, man, the kid is just right on, man. Absolutely, positively right on with what he said. And it was basically this, that he's ready for the fight right now. And he said that, look, I want to go old school. I'm ready to fight any of the champions right now, not later. And I'm also willing to fight any of the up and coming people right now. He said, look, man, I believe in doing it the old school way. And up and coming fighters fight up and coming fighters, but said that he didn't believe that Oscar De La Hoya and those guys would actually put him in the ring with him, because he knows what the deal is, right? And he was asked, about, like, what do you think about the style of Virgil Ortiz? How do you know he's an aggressive, big, strong fighter? And his take was, look, man, these guys can do a whole lot of other things with other people and look like they have a certain ability to get things done with other fighters. But when they get in the ring with me, they feel the power. They see that I can do everything in the ring. And, they're going to wind up doing something else when they get in the ring with me, because, he's just like that. Now, my take on the circumstance is this. I think that those guys are going to be put in a situation where they are going to have to fight each other. And this is why I believe that, where it is different from similar circumstances. Virgil Ortiz came out in the professional ranks as being the guy that probably did get more publicity than Jaron Ennis did. However, Jaron Ennis, through the whitewashes that he's been putting on these guys, has got more and more publicity, and he has more and more people talking about him as being one of the best fighters, one of the top prospects coming up, if not the top prospect coming up. With some people like Sean Porter saying that Jaron Ennis could be is the best thing that he's seen since Roy Jones Jr., right? You got Roy Jones Jr. himself talking about Jaron Ennis, talking about, man, yeah, that dude is really, really special. Yeah, I can understand why people would compare him to me, right? So, but you're not getting that type of conversation off of Virgil Ortiz. So the likelihood of Virgil Ortiz ever growing to, like, say, a situation like Canelo, where Canelo doesn't have to fight Jermall Charlo and doesn't have to fight Demetrius Andrade and doesn't have to fight his contemporaries, that is a result of the box office draw that he had and the momentum that Canelo Alvarez got early in his career that allowed him to get past those guys who were his contemporaries by fighting guys like Shane Mosley, fighting guys like Miguel Cotto, losing to Floyd Mayweather Jr., getting the Gennady Golovkin fight, right? While the other young prospects that were coming up with him were not getting those same opportunities because they were not being featured like Canelo Alvarez was being featured at the time. And that allowed for that gap in the career to take place. I do not believe, however, that is going to be the case with Virgil Ortiz and Jaron Ennis. Virgil Ortiz is going to be in the same weight class as Jaron Ennis at 147, and more than likely, Jaron Ennis is going to become a champion there. Virgil Ortiz more than likely is going to become a champion there, and those guys are going to be in the position of very early of people saying, you guys need to fight. And Virgil Ortiz is not going to be able to claim I'm the A side. What have you done in your career line that other people have been able to do. Now, the network thing may keep them apart, but at the end of the day, man, those guys, it's not going to be because people are going to discount Jaron Ennis and say that he doesn't deserve the fight and just be able to sweep under the rug, man. But at the end of the day, man, when those guys both develop to the top, I got Jaron Ennis winning in that fight. And definitely right now, I got him winning in the fight. But I'm telling you, man, you never know how guys' careers go and how much of an improvement Virgil Ortiz, even though he's more of a basic boxer than Jaron Ennis, what he might be able to do. But, I got Jaron Ennis winning the fight. Anyway, you let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.